Time to upgrade my front door with this smart deadbolt. Let's install it. Dave Taylor here with this. This is the Eufy Security 5-in-1 smart lock. It goes by two different model numbers. It's C210 in some regions and E110 in other regions. So don't get confused if you have either number, you got the same thing. This is a pretty nice unit. It is a Wi-Fi deadbolt with no bridge required. You're thinking, what's a bridge? So a lot of these devices have Wi-Fi, but you have a separate unit you have to plug into the wall within a couple of feet of the deadbolt, and that's how it talks to Wi-Fi, which is then how you have access to it from an app and such. The alternative is Bluetooth, which is even more frustrating because then you have to be within like 10 or 15 feet of the lock to use the app to control it. So this is a built-in all-in-one unit where once I get this all hooked up and configured, then I'll be able to check the status of my lock, add new codes, or lock my door from anywhere in the world. That's pretty sweet. It's also an entry-level unit, so the pricing is far less expensive than you might be afraid it might be. So, touchscreen keypad, there's an app on your phone that gives you tons of control, and it's BHMA certified, and BHMA is the Builders Hardware Manufacturing Association, and they check for security, durability, and finish. So if it gets a BHMA certification, then you know it's a pretty solid piece of hardware, which is important. It's also IPX3 weather resistant, so if you have some crazy weather or if it gets super cold, this is gonna do fine. Now, what I wanna do is I wanna unbox it real quick so you see everything in the box, and then we're gonna switch everything around and I'm gonna show you how I do the install, and then we're gonna come back and we'll do some programming on the phone to get it to work just right, and then finally we'll go back to the lock and look at how that all works. So, pretty complicated. You ready? Let's get started with the box. And to do that, it's easy enough. Just open up the box and let's see. So they'd have a really nice presentation. And as you can see, this side, let me take this piece off, that's the actual exterior of your lock, and that is a touchpad, and there's a key override in case of emergencies, which is handy. And then this side is going to be on the interior of your door, and you'll be able to lock or unlock it by simply revolving that to the right direction. So, you know, if you're going to bed and you want to make sure it's locked, you can just walk up and spin that to the correct spot. Easy enough. Now let's take this out and see what's underneath, because there's a little more to a deadbolt than that. And there's a little package, and in the package is, let's see, a little brochure on Eufy Security itself and a drilling template, but don't let that intimidate you because the vast majority of deadbolts use the exact same size hole and orientation, so you probably won't need this. I've never needed to re-drill a door hole, and then there's a quick start guide which will be very important when I get to the actual install. Finally, in the box are a couple more things. There's the actual deadbolt itself, and there's a way usually you can spin these, right? So you can adjust it for different depth doors, and then you can take a screwdriver and put it in this part and actually test extend the deadbolt to make sure it works. We'll do that as part of the install. And then there's a little bit of hardware in a bag. This includes keys and a plate and a bunch of different size screws. Again, the install is pretty straightforward on these things. And then finally, 4 AA batteries. And I should say that these AA batteries are going to power the lock for what they say is about 1,200 lock events. So if you use it 10 times a day, you're going to be replacing the lock every 4 months. But if, like me, it's once or twice a day, and sometimes entire days you never use the electronics at all because you just lock it and unlock it manually, in that case, this can easily last you 6 months. Now, I don't know because obviously I don't have it installed yet, but hopefully if other people are watching this and have this lock, they can pipe up and say what their experience is with battery life. So that's just about everything. And you can see here that touch panel is fairly complicated looking, but There's no way around it. It is crummy weather. It's raining outside, but it's time to change my deadbolt. So let me get in front of my door, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually do like a narrated slideshow. If I videotape me doing it, it's going to take a long time because I have to keep moving around camera angles. You don't want to see that. So let's just jump into what it's like to actually install this in a door. The first step is to take the old lock out, and you can see from both the inside and the outside it's a big hole with a little hole on the side and a recessed area with 2 screw holes. The deadbolt is actually going to be on the side, and then the lock mechanism will be obviously on the inside and outside. So the first step is to actually install the deadbolt, and notice it says top. You want to have that, no surprise, on the top, and you want to adjust it so that it is centered in that hole. That's really important. And then you just screw in the sides of the plate. So once you have that, you can actually test it by closing your door and using a screwdriver to make sure the bolt is lined up. I had that work perfectly, so no issue there. And then it was time to put the exterior unit on. And the trick here is you want to feed it through so that the wire goes underneath the deadbolt, but the actual metal piece, that's that sort of T shape, goes in the hole of the deadbolt so that it will be able to lock and unlock the door. Then you put the back plate on, feeding that wire through that side hole, as you can see here. And there are 2 screws you use to actually make sure that it stays on your interior door. There's a 3rd screw you can use optionally. I didn't actually use it because I didn't want to drill another hole in my door, but you can if you want. And then it's time to plug in that wire. And notice that there is a red side on both the plug and the socket. Make sure both show red, put them in very gently, and then you actually place that on the door. And there's a little bit of trickiness here because you have to actually hold it in place. But then on the bottom down here, there's a screw you put in, and that's the first screw. Now, there are 2 more screws you need to put in, and it isn't obvious where they are, but you have to peel away the stickers on the left and right side of the battery compartment, and then 2 screws go in there. And then when you're done with that, yes, you put in the batteries, which means that you're just about done. In fact, if we go to the outside, it is done, and now I can test it with my key. So that means it's time to do the initial pairing with the app. Let's do that. I'm going to go through this really fast. I'm in the Eufy app. I tap Add Device. It gives me lots of different devices. This company makes a lot of smart home gear. I will choose Smartlock. I will choose Smartlock from this list. I will then pick that it's for my home since I've already used the Eufy system, or you might have to add a new address. It's smart to do this clean and organized because it'll make more sense later. And then there's a QR code on the top of the battery compartment, and let the program scan that code and it will immediately be able to figure out the lock and start communicating. And then at this point you can say, yeah, I've already finished the installation. And then there's a little button you push just below all the batteries, and that's the sync button. Push it. It took about 2 seconds to do a beep, and then I tapped next. And then it wanted to use Bluetooth, and then I picked my Wi-Fi connection, and it's sharing this Wi-Fi information with the lock itself. So that's really important. And then, lo and behold, my new Eufy Security lock is actually connecting to the Wi-Fi network, and I get to choose what I'm going to call it. I called it front door. Then it just calibrates the lock, locking and unlocking it, and you just confirm that it worked. Just about done. Now we just need to set our admin passcode, and I recommend something 6 to 8 digits. Don't do something really short because longer passcodes, as it says, are more secure. Enter that, and lo and behold, setup is complete and you're ready to go. Now, let me jump back on camera. It's fully installed, and that wasn't actually as onerous as I was afraid it would be. And the setup on the app was actually really easy. The key is not to put the cover on your battery because there's a tiny little QR code that the app can scan, which gets you most of the way there pretty fast. Now, as you can see, I have the app displayed, so let's go ahead and here's the lock. I'm gonna actually lock it. So I'm gonna just drag this down to there. And you barely heard it. As I said, it is raining today, so it's a little noisy, but I can unlock it just the same way. And it'll unlock, and did you see that notification that came down? So we'll get another live notification. But I also programmed in a code. So let's go ahead, and I'm gonna go back to here, and we're gonna go and enter the code. And my code's not very complicated because it's for a demo. So light it up, and then when you see the numbers go around in that fun little circle, it worked, and I got the notification that I just locked the door using that demo passcode. So let's say I want to add another passcode. So I can just go to Manage Access, and you'll see that there are the two codes I have, which is my own plus the demo one. I'm going to add another one, and we'll call this Test, and I'm going to go and I'm going to do just a one-time code. And it's going to only work today. So by tomorrow, it's going to be expired, right? So that looks good. And now all I have to do is enter the actual code. And it's a little picky. You can't just do like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I will do instead 5, 5, 4, 4, 3. So I can check it. Yep, that looks good. Save. And looks good and done. And that's it. So now let's try it out and see if it'll unlock the door. So light it up and then push the shield icon. Oh, looks like it hasn't gotten that data yet. So I did enter that correctly, didn't I? Let's try again. So there we go. See, now it worked and the door's unlocked, which is great. I mean, this is really everything that you need. You have the app. There is a key if you need to have it, if there's an emergency, but there's also a USB-C port underneath. So in an absolute pinch, you could also use like a phone remote charger, and you can plug it in, and that'll give it enough juice for you to get in the house, and then you just change those AA's. So really, that's pretty much everything. Let me come back to that final spot to give you some final thoughts about this. But so far, gotta say, this is pretty sweet. So that's the install and me setting up a couple of special codes and such. I have to say, I've done a lot of these. This one's really easy to install and super easy to program. I have had with other vendors a little bit of a challenge getting the app to know that the device exists and to have that then be able to connect on Wi-Fi. But Eufy's got that all figured out. The app made it really easy. Key to note is that there's a tiny QR code on the top of the battery compartment area, and if you let your phone's app scan that, that does all the heavy lifting. It makes it really easy for you to proceed. So I'm really impressed. This is really one where it's just ready to go on my phone, easy for me to understand how to add or delete codes, how to limit things by time. I really like the notifications. I like that it's on Wi-Fi and that I don't have to have a separate bridge or separate device or anything. Lots to like here. I am curious to find out how it goes with the lifespan of those AA batteries, but you know, for AA batteries, I'm sure it's going to keep reporting to the device, so I'm expecting it'll give me a notification when I need to change them, and I'm okay with that. Now, in terms of tools, the main tool you need is a Phillips screwdriver. I used this one, and I also used my flathead just when I was testing the initial deadbolt to make sure it was all lined up properly. You don't really need to do that, and so I don't know that this is a requirement to have one of these, but if you like to be very methodical as I do, that's a solution. Now, I am left with keys, kind of old school, but sometimes that's what you need, so not a terrible thing to have this as an override. So this might be something I have stashed in my car without a label or something. So in an emergency, when the batteries are dead and I'm just exhausted and don't want to think about plugging something in or anything, I can use this to unlock my door. Handy. Now, you never need it on the inside because, of course, the inside doesn't have a keyhole because it just has that convenient control that you can use to lock and unlock. So that's really everything. Really hope you found this to be informative and interesting. We do need to talk about the price, but before we get to the price, I'm going to ask if you could subscribe to my channel. Click or tap on that subscribe button, and then go ahead and hit that bell icon for notifications too. And we're connected. Great. And if you found this to be helpful, useful, interesting, educational, or even just entertaining, it was a bit of a task, then go ahead and give me a like or thumbs up. Really appreciate that. All right. Well, this is all that remains of the now installed Eufy Security 5-in-1 Smart Lock model C210/E110, and it is $139.99. And when I checked, it's actually $119.99 at Amazon.com for $120. This is a smart lock with an app. I can pair it with Alexa. I can pair it with Google Home. There's a lot of ways you can use this. I can literally just say, Alexa, lock front door, and it will do that. Now, it won't unlock because if you think about that, you don't want someone yelling through your window to unlock your door, but certainly locks and such, it's really helpful to be able to have all of those as additional ways to interact with the device. But most importantly, it installs easy, it's easy to program, and that's really what you want. So that's all I got, and I'll hope to catch you in my next video.